Welcome here. We're so thankful you're here with us Sunday morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know why you call you church? You know how we say that we're not a building? We're the heartbeat of something that started years and years ago. We're the body. And today we're here as the body to come and worship and praise. And to start us off, I have some friends here that I want you to see. And we're just going to have a little conversation and we'll go from there. I said I had some friends here. Hello. Oh, hi. Hi. Guys, why are you in costumes?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, this one over here's got a cowboy hat on, and
It's not a cowboy hat, it's a police hat. And my name is Hot Chocolate. No chocolate for you!
okay, cop chocolate, no chocolate for you. Okay, sorry, but why are you in costume? Like, what happened?
You said there was something special! Yeah!
Oh, yeah, I should have been clear on that. There is something special happening today, and you might not be saying yay in a second, because I've got some news to tell you.
I like secrets.
Okay, this is a secret that has now been revealed. So I have a question. Does anybody know what archaeology is?
No!
Okay.
I don't know!
Okay.
No!
Blondie?
Wait, I have blonde hair?
Yeah, I thought you had blue hair, but you have blonde hair today. So what is archaeology?
Archaeology is where you like look through dirt and stuff and find like ruins and artifacts that tell you about history.
Yeah.
Why do we care about history? We now have like TVs and video games and stuff. Shush! Stop!
Okay, we care about archaeology because something unique that happened. Who knows where Jerusalem is?
It's in New Zealand.
Okay, there is a Jerusalem in New Zealand, but Blondie's got it right. It's the Jerusalem that's in Israel I want to talk about. Be careful, there no cookie for you or chocolate for you. You're gonna
My
fall.
name's Chef Pee Pee.
Okay, Chef Pee. I thought we had to talk about that, but anyhow. Anyhow, I have to tell you something that happened this week. Now, your dad and I were watching a movie, not a video or the internet, a movie which is real, and they were in Israel, and they're doing this archaeology dig, and they were near a place where something happened a couple thousands of years ago, and inside they went in, they found a stone box. You know what the stone box was?
What?
It was a tomb, and inside there were bones. And you know whose tomb it was?
Whose?
It was Jesus, because it said on the front of it, "Hello, my name is Jesus."
Wait. Cool.
Yeah. What?
Movies, TV shows, and the internet are 80% lies.
No, but this wasn't a lie. This was true. It was on TV.
Lies.
Because there was a reputable announcer saying they found Jesus' body. So you know what that means?
What?
No, do you know what that means?
The Easter Bunny is a Jesus imposter.
No, do you know what that means?
April Fool!
That's right, April Fools. Jesus is alive, and we're going to actually, what are we going to do, Blondie?
We got a song, and so we're gonna sing it. Wait, where did I go? No!
Okay, so
Thanks for helping me get these things ready. My kids just love Easter.
Who doesn't love Easter? Am I right?
Yeah, that's true. But when you think about it, that first Easter, Jesus had it really rough.
Wow, I never really thought of that. I wonder whatever happened to that guy.
He died on the cross.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
No, that's a different guy. I'm thinking of Jesus that. What's his last name?
No, same guy.
Really? Wow. Okay. Guess I never really thought of that. I wonder whatever happened to that guy.
He came back to life 3 days later.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, we're still talking about Tomb Jesus.
Yes.
That's the same guy?
Same guy. Yep. Jesus who died on the cross for our sins.
No, that's a different guy.
No, it's the same Jesus. He died on the cross. He was buried in a tomb. He came back to life. And now he sits at the right hand of God.
Wait, cross Jesus is the same as right hand of God Jesus?
Yeah.
Not separate Jesuses?
It's separate Jesuses?
I just never put them all together before.
There's still just one guy.
Wait, you understand what this means, don't you? One guy did all of that. I mean, this changes history. This changes everything. This is big. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. Or, I wonder, he needs more than just M&Ms for his birthday. Wait, so the Easter Bunny is...
No.
In my darkness, Jesus found me, touched my eyes and made me see, broke sin's chains that long had bound me, gave me life and liberty. Oh, glorious love of Christ, my Lord divine, that made him stoop to save a soul like mine. Through all my days and then in heaven above, my song will silence never. I'll worship him forever and praise him for his glorious love. Oh, amazing truth to ponder, he whom angel hosts attend. Lord of heaven, God's Son, what wonder, he became the sinner's friend. Oh, glorious love of Christ, my Lord divine, that made him stoop to save a soul like mine. Through all my days and then in heaven above, my song will silence never. I'll worship him forever and praise him for his glorious love. Oh, glorious love of Christ, my Lord divine, that made him stoop to save a soul like mine. Through all my days and then in heaven above, my song will silence never. I'll worship him forever and praise him for his glorious love. My song will silence never. I'll worship him forever and praise him for his glorious love. And praise him for his glorious love. And praise him for his glorious love.
Good morning. My name is Peter, and I am one of Jesus' disciples. More than that, I'm one of his friends. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here this morning to share with you some of the amazing things that I've seen. Some of the amazing stuff that he did. You know, I was going to be great. I was going to be something else. He called me Peter, the rock, the one that he could depend on. And I let him down. Yeah, I remember the first time that I saw him. We were at the water's edge and we were repairing our nets, and he came with a large crowd of people following him and all listening to him and wondering what this man had to say. And we didn't know what was going on, but he came up and there were so many. He actually climbed into our boat and we pushed out from shore so he could stand in our boat and talk to everybody at once. His words were amazing. You know, the way he said things, just, they penetrated right through into the heart. And, well, we were all captivated. We'd never heard anything like it. When he was done speaking to them, he said to us, you push out from the shore a little further. Let's go out to where it's deep and throw your nets in over there. Let's get some fish. Now, I got to tell you, we'd fished all day the day before, and we stayed out all night. We didn't catch so much as a sardine, not one, you understand. And we were exhausted, to say the least. We were tired. But there was something in the way that he said it that we just felt like we should do it. And so we went out and we put the boats out into deeper water and we put the nets in. And you would not believe what happened. The nets within seconds were so full of fish that we couldn't get them into the boat. We couldn't haul them along. We couldn't drag them in. We had to call the sons of Zebedee in to help us just to drag them up onto shore. There were so many fish. And that was when he said it. That was when he called us to go with him, to follow him, and become fishers of men. I remember another time we were out in the boats. I mean, we were way out in the middle of the lake, and it was like this freak storm came on us. It was insane. The waves were coming in. They must have been 8 feet high, and the boat was crashing this way and that. And you know, I've been around boats my entire life, and I don't mind telling you, I was terrified. And so we began throwing everything overboard. We're chucking boxes, we're chucking food, we're chucking everything we can to make the boat as light as possible so that we can steer it just that much better. And it wasn't doing any good, and we were sure we were going to die. And in the midst of throwing all that stuff overboard, one of the fellas notices that Jesus is in the boat with us, asleep at the front of the boat. How he could sleep in a storm like that is completely beyond me. And we went to him and we were, Master, we're all going to die. And he got up and he looked at us for just a moment. And the expression on his face was disappointment. And he said, "You have little faith." And then he turned and he put his hand out and he said, "Peace, be still." That's it. And like that, the storm stopped and the water became like glass. We didn't understand. I remember another time we were out in the middle of nowhere. And when I say in the middle of nowhere, I mean the middle of nowhere. We were out and it was nothing but fields and rocks and hills for a gazillion miles, whatever that is. We didn't measure it, you understand, but we were in the middle of nowhere. And we were the largest crowd of people we had ever seen at that point. There were at least, I mean, we didn't count them, but there were at least 5,000 men. Not to mention the women and the children. This crowd was massive. And Jesus taught us all day long. It was so good. And when he was done teaching, we came to him and we noticed, I mean, people were hungry. We'd been there all day in the blazing heat in the sun. People were parched. People were starving. And so we went to him and we said, "Master, release them into the villages so that they can find something to eat." And you know what he did? He looked at us, and he said, "You feed them." Well, what were we supposed to do with that? Judas, the guy who kept our money for us, he just about had a heart attack. I mean, we didn't have enough money to feed half of the people there, much less find food for everybody. We looked. Jesus said, "Do it." So we looked around. We couldn't find anything. There was no food. I mean, a couple people had crumbs left in their baskets. Nobody had anything. Until this little boy, he grabs my cloak and he's pulling on it, and I turn to him, and he holds up this little package. And so I open up the package, and I look at the package, and inside that package is a couple of loaves of bread. I mean, they were no bigger than my fist. Just a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. It was nothing. Mom packed them as lunch for the day. You understand what I'm saying? It was this tiny little amount of food, and I laughed at him. I laughed, but I took it to Jesus and I said, this is what we got. And he took that, he smiled at the boy, and he held it up above his head, and he gave thanks to his Father in heaven. And he put it down, and he began taking bread, and he broke it, and he would give it to us, and to pass out, you understand, and then he would take more, and he would break it, and he would pass it out, and then he'd take more, and it kept going, and it was the same with the fish. He took them, and he broke them, and he handed it out so that we could pass it out to the people, and it just kept going. And I don't know how, I don't understand what happened, but after we were full, after the 5,000 men were full, and the women and the children were full of food, he still had 12 baskets left over. 12. Can you believe it? 12 baskets. We had never, and I mean never, seen anything like that. With Jesus, we saw incredible things. We saw the blind see again. We saw the deaf have their hearing returned to them. We saw people who were sick healed. We even saw the dead raised from the grave. And still we didn't understand. He was amazing. You know, he told me that I would betray him. He knew. Before I ever did anything like that, he knew. I remember we were sitting at a table. We had just finished our Passover meal that we shared together, and we had a great time. Just a bunch of guys hanging out in a room. And we were sitting there and we were listening. Everything he said was so good. And when he got done, he grabbed the bread, and he took the bread and he broke it. He gave thanks for it. And he began passing it around to us. And he said, take this and eat it. For this is my body, which has been broken for you. What a strange thing to say. And when we were done, he took a cup of wine and he gave thanks for that. And he said, this is the cup of the new covenant in my blood. Drink this. And whenever you eat the bread and drink the cup, remember me. So strange. I mean, why would he say that? We did it, of course, not fully understanding. And later that night we found ourselves in the garden praying. Well, it's just, we were actually sleeping. He was praying. He was praying. He was praying for us. He's praying for you. And in the midst of that, soldiers came. Soldiers from the temple. They had swords and clubs and torches, like something out of a Frankenstein movie. And they came into the garden looking for him and leading them. Our Judas was leading them. And they came into the garden, and they came to where we were, and Judas went right up to Jesus, and he kissed him. Like they were friends. Like he loved him. The soldiers immediately, they grabbed Jesus, and I tried to defend him. I tried to stop them. I drew my sword, and I started just flailing my arms and punching and hitting and slicing everywhere I could. I even took off a guy's ear. But in the midst of all of it, Jesus stood, and he spoke calmly, and he spoke to me, and he said, Peter, put it down. Stop this. And I did. I would do anything he said. It reminded me that night that we were sitting around the table. He had said that we would betray him. He told us that we would all betray him. And I had stood up and I said, no, Lord, I will never betray you. I will follow you anywhere. I will follow you to jail. I will even follow you to death. But he knew. And in the garden, the soldiers, they grabbed him. And they took him. And we took off. We ran. Like cowards. All of us. I followed, but I followed from a safe distance. I didn't want to get caught up in that. They were hitting him I mean, they were whipping him. They're taking him off I don't know where, and they're just beating on him, and it seemed like for no reason. He hadn't even been to trial yet. And trial, they took him to it was a joke filled with lies and hate. They condemned him. We watched, we saw, they beat him. I mean, they beat him. They beat him, and they whipped him. They whipped him until his flesh broke. They took thorns. They wrapped a ring of thorns, and they shoved it down, piercing into his skull. They shoved it down his head, calling it a crown, mocking him. I've never seen anything like it. And then what was worse is even in that state, and after all of that, they still wouldn't let go. And we could hear the chants all over the city, crucify him, crucify him. What a horrible thing to do to any human being, and yet they chose to do that, and they gave him a cross that he had to carry. I don't know how much that thing weighed, but we watched him weeping from a distance, and he carried. He had some help at times, but he carried that cross up onto that hill, the one they call the skull, Golgotha. He carried it all the way out of the city, all through the gates and everything, and up onto that hill where he lay the cross down more like he dropped that cross in exhaustion, and then they rolled him onto it. And they nailed him to it. They took nails and they lifted him up. There's a sign that they put above his head, "Hail the King of the Jews," as if to mock him. And he hung there. And you know, all the while they're doing these things to him, while we're crying in frustration, not knowing what to do or how to help him, do you know what he did? He prayed. He called out loud. We heard him say it. "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." My heart broke. All of our hearts broke. And he hung there all day. I mean, he hung there. Until at last he looked out to us all and he spoke the words, "It is finished." It's finished. And he gave up his spirit. They took him down off the cross and they wrapped him, and this rich man, this good man, he came and he gave us a tomb that we could have to put Jesus in, and he was put into the tomb, and the Romans came and they rolled a stone. I don't know how they were able to do it. I think they used a team of horses or something. This giant stone they moved in. And then they came with their wax and their seals and all that, and they sealed it so that no one could get in. They were finished. And he sat or lay in that tomb for 3 days. It's been 3 days. He's dead. We saw it. We watched him die. We watched him buried. But this morning, something happened. Something unexpected. Something extraordinary. Something happened. The women went to the tomb to put flowers at the tomb. And do you know what they found? The door was open. The stone had moved. And Jesus was no longer there. He's alive. He's alive, I'm telling you. He's alive.